Okay, this is probably one of the craziest cases we followed here on the Law and Crime Network. So you're just hearing Gypsy Blanchard talking about some of the abuse she faced at the hands of her mother, who convinced her she had all these ailments and how she was in a wheelchair all of her life. Let's bring in my guest now, Judge Brandon Birmingham out of Texas and Judge Quinton Washington. He's in Fulton County, Georgia. We have two judges on the show. How great, because who better to break down these cases than judges? Let's start with you, Judge Washington. What do you make so far of this testimony? You kind of feel some sympathy for Gypsy Blanchard as she's describing in this very feeble voice what she had to go through.
Yes, I mean, that's very true. And so that's why in determining what the facts are, it's good that you're going to have a jury make determinations about how they view the facts, because this one's a tough one to call because of the fact that when you have someone who suffered as much as she has, does she have the correct capacity to be able to determine whether what she's doing is right or wrong?
Well, and let's break down what happened, because Gypsy Blanchard conspired with her boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, who's the one who's on trial in this case, to murder Dee Blanchard. But Nicholas is the one that did the stabbing. He did it. She stayed in the bathroom at the time, hearing the screams. She takes a plea, serves 10 years in prison, and then he's convicted of these first-degree murder charges and is in prison for life. Is that a fair, Judge Birmingham, is that a fair outcome fundamentally of this case? That's a huge difference for two people that probably are equally culpable for what happened.
Well, they certainly agreed to this plan, and they certainly, as a group, carried it out. Every case is going to be different. Every person is going to be different. There is also certain value, and we see this in courtrooms all across the country, where one co-defendant testifies against another to perhaps fill in some of the gaps, to perhaps bring some of the evidence and to bring everything into focus about what actually happened. So there's value in that as well. You've got to take into account that this was her motive, not his motive. He adopted her motive. She's the one that went through all the abuse. She's the one that did not know any better. So, all of those things were taken into account.
But part of the defenses in the Nicholas Godejohn case was that her boyfriend, who she met on this Christian dating site, Nicholas Godejohn, he had autism, and he was easily manipulated by Gypsy Blanchard. And Gypsy Blanchard was really the one in charge of what happened. So these next clips, Gypsy Blanchard's going to talk specifically that she knew about his autism. Take a listen.
Did you and Nick ever talk about any disabilities he may have?
Yes.
What disabilities did you understand him to have?
Asperger's syndrome.
Did you even know what that was?
No, sir.
Now, you indicated that you paid for this trip to Missouri by Nick in 2015. What all did you pay for?
I paid for the Greyhound bus ticket. I paid for the hotel and for eating money.
And how did you pay for this? How did you get the money to Nick?
I stole the money from my mother, and I sent it to him via the mail.
Gypsy, if you wouldn't mind speaking up just a bit.
Yes.
It's a little soft.
Sorry.
I think you said you put it in the mail?
Yes, sir.
In what form was the money?
Cash.
Do you know how much you sent him that time?
I don't know the exact amount. Probably about $800.
And how would you get the money how would you steal the money from your mother?
She kept it in a money pouch.
What were your feelings for Nick in the spring of 2015?
I loved him.
Was there a point in this relationship that you considered yourself, that is you and Nick, to be more than just boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
When was that?
We had plans to marry.
Any other plans for your future at that point?
We plan to have kids. Yes.
Did you do anything to prepare for having children with Nick?
Yes.
What did you do?
I stole baby clothes and things for a child.
And how would you steal baby clothes?
I was in the wheelchair, so I would steal them from Walmart.
And where would your mother be when you did this?
She would have been in a different aisle or a different section of the store.
And was she aware of any of this?
No, sir.
At some point, you decided to kill your mother. Is that correct?
Yes.
When was that?
Thoughts of it started a year prior to the murder actually happening.
Whose idea was it to kill your mother?
Mine.
Why did you want to kill your mother?
Because I wanted to be free of her hold on me.
Whose idea was the murder? Mine. Why? I wanted to be free of her holds on me. That's what Gypsy Blanchard just testified to. I want to bring in back the judges who we had via Skype from Texas and Georgia. Take it to you first, Judge Birmingham, because I know you've got to run after this. Does that help the prosecution or the defense, the fact that here she is admitting that the whole thing was her idea, yet she's the one that got off on 10 years, and Nicholas Godejohn is facing life in prison?
There is no doubt that this was her motive, and the prosecutors are going to try to, and they did accomplish in their trial, setting out each step along the way, though, when Nick Godejohn was considering his next move. There was those very dramatic text messages between the two of them, Gypsy and Nick, where they were talking about, I'm at the front door, okay, come on in, and let me know when it's going to happen. And then you've got to also consider this free-thinking Nick Godejohn and Gypsy, when they were done doing what they did, they believe they had intercourse that night, then they were traveling. They went to a motel, they had all this cash, and they were just having a party. I mean, those are the types of things that don't really mesh with the idea that Nick Godejohn was somebody who was easily manipulated.
Well, let's take it to the other judge. What do you make of this autism Asperger's defense? She testified to the fact she knew he had Asperger's. Could it possibly mitigate any of what he did?
Well, they're definitely going to try to argue that. The reason why they're soliciting all those facts from her is so that ultimately the defense can get up there and say it wasn't him, it was her.
Right.
Because he didn't know what he was doing.
But,
so
I mean,
convict him beyond a reason. They're going to say you can't convict him beyond a reasonable doubt if it's not his fault.
You know, and when we go into these type of things, we talk about they have to deliberate. He had to deliberate the crime, but also that he had to know right from wrong. And I don't think that there's really any indication here that he didn't know what he was doing was wrong.
Well, see, I think that's where it goes to the jury to make that determination, because ultimately, beyond a reasonable doubt is when they're sitting back there and they've been observing to make the determination as to whether or not they think that he knew beyond a reasonable doubt what he was doing was wrong.
All righty, we have to take a quick break. We're going to hear more testimony from Gypsy Blanchard when we come back. I know Judge Birmingham has to run. Judge Washington is going to stay with us, and I hope you do as well. Stick around. We'll be back.